Alright guys, so in this video we're going to be showing you how we go from this and turn it into this. Just getting started here. I've already got the actual light fixture taken down. Now the next step I want to do is actually get the housing for the electrical out of my way, because I do have to cut in this area. By getting that bracket out of the way, it allows me to cut a little more freely and I can be more accurate with where my blade's going. So this part here, as I'm cutting the lines that I've chalk lined and drawn, I'm trying not to bury the blade too deep and just be as accurate as I can with my cut. This part's always really messy, just getting rid of the plaster and the lath here, and then just getting dumped on by whatever insulation is behind here. There's no real easy way to do this part other than just do what I do here, just cut each channel out and, you know, control the chaos a little bit as best you can. But once this part's done, it does get slightly easier from here on out. After getting the giant mess cleaned up, I move forward and starting to draw my lines, using the ceiling opening that I cut as my first line to draw, getting that nice and level. And then I actually use a 3-inch template, draw a recess line more or less back behind the drywall. In other words, I'm trying to make room for the 3 inches of headers that I got to put all the way around. It's very important for strength to do this. So as you can see, I've got my support poles there for when I'm cutting the joist. But then what's going to hold the weight after that is the 3 inches worth of headers that I have going across afterward. So you'll see how that plays out. But for now, it's just about getting decently accurate cut that can accommodate those headers. This part here, I'm just beginning the framing process, and it's really crucial that these first couple pieces I'm putting in here are as plumb and as straight as possible. As you can see, there's a very small step between the ceiling opening and the actual wall. So everything here has to be nice and straight because the eye is going to catch that down the road. And once this part's done, I can base all the rest of the framing off of that and make sure everything is square and tight. So now that the other side is installed and what I would call sufficiently plumb, now I can get the other side going here and just constantly double and triple checking everything that I do, making sure that I have the proper rough opening dimension going forward. Otherwise, when I go to put the curb on the roof, it's not going to match up well and I'm going to have headaches there. So once I'm satisfied, I basically leave it as is until we move forward to cutting the opening and getting everything on the roof. So now that it's the following day, I'm going to begin the process of actually cutting the roof open. At this point, I'm using a 9-inch pruning blade to actually cut through the roof boards and however many layers of flat roof material there is. Quite often in these older homes, there's quite a few layers, and you need a sufficient blade to do this task. Just up on the roof here, cleaning up some lines and getting ready to crack this thing open. Now that I've got everything opened up, it's time to actually start lining this curb over the opening that I've got. So it's really important that I'm checking for level here, just checking all the lines and making sure it's all copacetic. Check for square. And finally, just finishing fastening down the opening. At this point, I've already got the base layer of membrane applied, and I am beginning now the cap layer of the membrane, which really helps solidify the waterproofing, but also keeps the UV rays from killing any of the membrane itself. And this is what a big part of roofing is actually using a granulated material, whether it be shingles or membrane. That way we make sure that neither the sun or water kills the roofing around our skylight. And of course, the beauty shots. So once the roofing is done, we want to go back inside and start to wrap things up here. So as you can see, I'm putting in some insulation in some big gap areas where you don't necessarily need framing to fill the gap, but you do want to have some sort of insulation just to keep in those R values. Once that's done, I got to get some drywall up there. So as you can see here, I'm just starting to cut my boards, getting them all prepared. Now that they're cut, we're going to go back inside and start to fasten them on. This is always a satisfying part. You get to see all that hard work from before start to pay off. As soon as you get some whiteboard on the wall, it starts to reflect more light, but it also gets you to the point where you can start putting on mud. And once you're at that stage, it's kind of like the home stretch, and it's always a great feeling. So here's a funny little patch that I had to do in the drywall. I was pretty proud of myself on this one. Just had to make this cute little piece here just to fit in just right. And this allowed me to use a lot less filler mud in this spot. So whenever I can accomplish this, it's always a good moment. So at this point, I've got all my joint compound all mixed up, ready to go. This is a wet mud that has a bit of glue in it. I'm using paper beads for all my corners and my joints here, which require a real sticky, basically mud / glue that's going to make sure all those stay on throughout the years. And that way, once all those paper beads are on, then I can really start to do my proper first, second, and third coats of mud afterward. But this is a crucial step here where it basically makes or breaks the job as far as how it looks and how those sharp corners come together. This is a tedious process. However, like I said, it's really important, and I find personally that by using the paper bead, I can get that compound on there really nicely and create the shape of the corner. In case there's any unevenness, I can kind of bend it and kind of manipulate it in any way that I need to bring things together, right? What's really nice about the paper bead is it actually has a inner sort of metal angle in it. That way, and that's really what keeps the shape, right? The paper is just there to stick, and then the metal inside is what gives it that sharp corner. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. So once we have all the corner beads installed and mudded in, then it's time to basically just do a rinse and repeat process of putting on mud and going over those corners, smoothing everything out. Mostly in my case, I'm using a lot of quick set muds for that in-between stage. So I use a wet mud for the corner beads, and then once those are on, I'll start to use quick set muds, which have well, it's in the title, so they set up quickly. That means you can start to add layers over top quickly, right? As opposed to waiting for a wet mud to dry for a day or two before you can layer on another coat. So here I'm just putting on some quick set and like I said, rinse and repeat, waiting so I can put on the next coat and smooth things over and over and over the next couple days. And then for my final coat, I'll actually go back and use a wet mud basically as my very last coat. That way I can wait for it to dry over that night, and then the next morning come in for the sanding process and really basically shape out the tunnel to its perfection, or as close as possible, the next morning. So the big reason I use a wet mud for my last coat is how easily it sands. And as you can even see here in this footage, the amount of dust really that comes down is very heavy and thick. And that is exactly why I like to use this product, because it allows me to shape the tunnel the way I need to. So if I gotta sand a bunch of parts off, then I can do that. Or if I've done a really good job in mudding and there's not much to sand, then even better. Now that we're all sanded down and ready for paint, I'm just preparing a Kills PVA primer, which is generally meant for new drywall in mud. It's also a good in general primer as well, but for the most part, it applies perfectly to any new drywall, and the drywall will absorb it. So will the new mud as well. In most cases, if your ceiling paint that you have already is new or new-ish, then the Kills PVA will apply to it no problem. As you can see here, I'm applying it to the entire ceiling, more so as a tester coat, but after this coat I decided, okay, it's good to go, so I just used 2 coats of Kills primer to finish this thing off. Instead of doing a paint layer afterward, I felt that the Kills was enough to use actually as a paint for the final coat. Because the Skylight and ceiling is out of reach, there's no need to really use an official paint, and it's a nice, perfect, flat white. It actually comes out with a great finish, granted that it connects well to the existing paint from before. And without further ado, here's the final reveal.